Welcome back to my channel, sports fans. Okay, let's get into this one right here. Wow. 1961, 62 NBA awards voting. These numbers are incredible. Now, was this era actually better than the 2020's? I'm going to let you guys decide. Okay? Whatever you want to think about this era, maybe you might think it wasn't as skilled. Maybe you want to think these guys are plumbers. Maybe you think that they weren't as athletic. Whatever you want to think, the one thing you cannot say or go against is that these guys didn't have a motor. Look at these numbers. To put up these kind of numbers, even in the fast-paced era, basically the same pace era as today, putting up the same numbers per game as today, you still got to have a motor. You still got to get up and down the court, get these points, be accurate while you're doing it, efficient. You still got to have a motor. You got to have the energy. These guys weren't carrying the ball. They couldn't palm the ball. They couldn't carry. They couldn't be the so-called most dominant force as far as using their body weight against their opponents. They had to play under the official rules that the NBA laid out from the beginning for the league, right? A lot of times these guys were being called for offensive fouls for no reason. They could go for a shot and be in the air and the guy just slide right underneath them and it would be called for offensive fouls. So many a times they would have to stop and pull up and make these shots. Wilt Chamberlain wasn't allowed just to dunk all over his opponents. And many people might think that the reason why Wilt and Russell was getting all these rebounds is because the forwards and the guards weren't getting all these rebounds. But let's just say that you still was battling the centers for the rebounds. Unlike today, you're not really battling nobody for the rebound. Once the shot is taken, all the offensive guys just take off and go to the other end and play defense. So in this era, you're not battling nobody. Even the one center that's under the basket on the offensive end, the majority of the time, especially in the regular season, I'll give it to them in the playoffs. They kind of go back to playing real basketball and we'll try to battle for the rebound. But in the regular season today, the offensive players will not battle for the offensive rebound. So the defensive players will get all the rebounds. If you saw LeBron many times get rebounds flat-footed, not battling nobody. So this ain't always true that your centers had to battle nobody because they was battling other centers. And as you can see, Oscar Robertson and Elgin Baylor was grabbing many rebounds. One was a guard and one was a forward. So we can't say that's exactly true. What we can say and what we do know is that Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain were just great rebounders. Kind of like Dennis Rodman. What would you call him? A small forward, maybe? He was just a great rebounder. He had a knack for getting a rebound, had the skills for getting rebounds. Even though he was battling 7-footers back in his days, which were centers, and good power forwards for the rebounds. So, I don't know, guys. For me, this is what I think. I think in the 70's, you have better rebounders. More guys that battle for the rebounds than the 60's. I'm not trying to say the 60's didn't have guys battling for the rebounds. And I think the 80s was the same thing. And I think the 90s were the same thing. And maybe even the 2000s. But I can't say that for the 2020s. They haven't showed me anything for that to be possible. So I don't think the 2020's had better rebounders than the 60's. And truthfully, I don't think even the 2010's have better rebounders than the 60's. Okay. Now, as far as scoring, I guess we can move on and say, they had better scores in the 70's, the 80's, the 90's. It may be the 2000's and maybe the 2010's, but I'm not convinced that the 2020's have better scores because they don't score at every level. They just don't. I don't think they're skill scorers. They only really shoot the three. They're not good at the mid-range. They don't shoot the mid-range because the mid-range is really, it's a difficult shot. You got to have great touch on the mid-range shot from outside the paint and inside the three-point line from every angle. That's why, many people like me in Sports and Fitness Rants, we consider Michael Jordan the greatest shooter of all time because he was the greatest mid-range shooter of all time. Not only because he was good at the mid-range, it's because the difficulty in which he took his shots, the pump fakes, the up and unders, the fadeaways, the off balance, these type of shots, he wasn't just taking a straight up mid-range like Kevin Durant, a 7-footer. Not trying to beat up on Kevin Durant, who is one of the greatest mid-range shooters of all times. But to me, he's never had that type of defense in his face. He's never had to take these kind of difficult shots that Michael Jordan had to take as a mid-range shooter. So I don't really consider him, Kevin Durant, the greatest mid-range shooter. I just don't. Yeah, he's more efficient than Michael Jordan, but he doesn't have that kind of defense played on him. And that's why when I get to Curry, I don't really think he's the greatest three-point shooter of all time. As far as percentage and makes, yes. But where's the type of defense on him? And before people say, oh man, I've seen this from Curry plenty of times. Not like Reggie Miller. Nothing like Reggie Miller, the 90s defense he had to play against, where he came off a 1 screen, 2 screen, 3 screens, and had a hand right in his mug as he shot the ball. I just don't think that's the same as far as consistency, as far as the defense that Reggie Miller had on him. And now it's really bad, the defense. So I won't consider this the greatest era of all time, the 60's, or the greatest skilled era of all time. What I'm trying to say is that you can't deny these guys putting up these kind of stats, that you got to have the energy, the motor, the accuracy, the skills. And we talked about before, the assist was different. You better be going to the basket to shoot when you get the ball. You can't be taking all these dribbles or it's not an assist. Where today, you could just pass it to a guy and he dribble all around the court. And if he was the last one with the ball, now you get the assist. And this is how LeBron has all these assists, which to me means nothing. They were talking about on I think it's Michael Jordan fans are the best. I don't think they were debating. Was it a debate? I don't know. They were talking about LeBron and Oscar Robertson. Well, I really don't think it's no comparison. Oscar Robertson played in a big man era with real power forwards and real centers and had to have positional skills as a guard. He couldn't carry, he couldn't travel, he couldn't flop, he couldn't team hop. Yes, I think he went to the Bucks at the end and got that championship, but he wasn't team hopping all his career. He wasn't blaming teammates. He wasn't switching coaches all his career and blaming his coaches and things like that. And again, Oscar Robertson's assist came different. A man going to the basket and shooting, not dribbling around and things like that. He got his rebounds against, like I said, it was great centers in the league, real centers, and real power forwards. He got his rebounds amongst them. And his 25 points per game he didn't have the 3-point shot. So he had to shoot a lot of his shots at the mid-range. And LeBron's never been a good 3-point shooter. I mean, Jordan was never a good LeBron's never been a good mid-range shooter at 37% for his career, and he's never been a good 3-point shooter. I mean, Michael Jordan wasn't neither, but guess what? He had a season where he shot good from the 3-point. The line was in. Well, he shot good in the finals in 3 straight series when the line wasn't in. But still, it wasn't something that Michael Jordan wanted to do, and he expressed that he didn't want to be sitting at the 3-point line waiting for the ball. It would take away his overall game, and you wouldn't know him from Michael Jordan. So, what was it? Up until 89, 90? I think he only averaged, 1 or less 3-point attempts per game. And we talked about he has all these countless 30-point games, a lot of 40-point games, a lot of 50-point games, and 1 60-point game where he didn't even attempt a 3. So LeBron's not a good 3-point shooter. He had the sunshine on his ass this year. And that's basically it. And yes, he's taking a lot of threes because he doesn't want to work on his mid-range. It's a difficult shot. You got to have touch. He doesn't need a mid-range because he can barrel to the basket under these new rules, elbowing you in the face, stiff-arming you in the chest, the stomach, and you'll get the foul called on you for attempting to play defense. Because we all said before, and we all know, if you get caught practicing defense in practice, you'll get suspended by the league. That's off limits. Now, do they play a little bit of defense more in the playoffs? Yes, I can give them credit for that. But the regular season is just real lackadaisical. Dudes don't play no defense. You're just, it's just an offensive game. And dudes sitting around, and that's what I said before. When we talk about energy and having a motor, you're not cutting to the basket. You're not really doing no pick and rolls. You're just sitting around the 3-point line. They call so many, not timeouts, but they stop the ball so much in this era. These guys are always resting. They got a challenge. Now you're resting again. To shoot a free throw is so much time wasted in this era. They give these guys so much time just to shoot a free throw. They'll call a foul, and then they go talking and bull crapping around and stuff like that. And then the guy's on the line. He'll shoot a free throw, and it's like real lackadaisical after that. The ball really don't go back to him to shoot another free throw. It's just these guys get all these breaks, including the timeout break. It's ridiculous. So what you can't deny is when you look at the 60s, these guys had to have a lot of energy to play at this fast pace. They play at the same pace as today, and you had to have a motor. And you damn sure had to be athletic to be playing at this kind of pace. And for dudes to be scoring this much, grabbing these rebounds, having these many assists, and doing it in Chuck Taylors, doing it without the same medicine that they have today, or in the 210s or the 2000s or the 90s or the 80s, it just got better. The recovery, not to mention the drugs that they're allowed to take that's legal. That these guys today should be killing it. Man, they were doing drugs back in the 90s. But, okay, if we say the guys in the 90s were doing drugs, whatever drugs, if we say the guys today are doing drugs, why aren't they better today? Why are they allowed to carry, travel, flop, just sit around the 3-point line, have no positional skills as a center? Yes, they might be able to shoot better as centers, but look at Rudy Gobert. He can't shoot. Look at the defensive players of the years back in the the 80s, the 90s, even the 70s, and if you want to say, okay, even the 60s, the guys who didn't win defensive player of the years, those guys had a better skill set as centers that won defensive player of the year or would have won defensive player of the year than Rudy Gobert. The Hakeem Olajuwons, even Patrick Ewing, who didn't even win it because he was going against other great defensive guys. David Robinson, he could shoot better than Rudy Gobert. He could rebound better than Rudy Gobert. He could play better defense than Rudy Gobert. Um, Kareem. What about Moses Malone? Even though Shaq never won a Defensive Player of the Year, he's a better all-around player than Rudy Gobert. Who are your great? Oh, Joel Embiid. You think he's ever going to win Defensive Player of the Year? Give me over Joel Embiid. Give me Kareem. Give me Elijah one. Give me David Robinson. Who else? Give me Shaq. Give me those guys as better centers. Give me Kareem. If I didn't say Kareem, yeah, I think Joel Embiid is better than Mutombo. Just a slightly better than Alonzo Mourning. And definitely give me Bill Russell and give me Wilt Chamberlain over Joel Embiid. It's nothing. Who's the competition for Joel Embiid and Joker in this era? As far as centers, who's their competition? Because in the 90s, it was littered with competition. Even Rick Smith, not a Hall of Famer, good defensive player and a good shooter. You can sit out there in the mid-range and shoot the hell out of the ball. D-Vox was a pretty good skill center. Not a Hall of Famer, but he was a great skill center. He could handle the ball. He could shoot the mid-range. He could pass. Don't even get into the 2000s and the 210s. Those centers basically are non-existent unless you can tell me one. I don't know. Bite maybe Duncan. He's a real center, but they consider him a power forward. Um, about Kevin Garnett. It's a power forward. I don't know. I ain't gonna beat up on the 210s that much, but the 2000s that much. But the 210s was basically a joke for the big man era. Even Joker, who came in, when did he come? He came in. When did he come in? Like 2012 or something like that. Man, he really didn't do nothing for his first 4 years. Let me pull up this guy real quick. That's why I put a graphic up a long time ago before we did a video. And they try to say he's like the top 5 center of all time. And I had to put up all these centers. And the centers I put up, like Wilt Chamberlain, even Bill Russell. I was considering Duncan the center. If you don't want to, that's fine. Ewing, Kareem, Hakeem, and Wilt. Like, these guys came into the league and just impacted the league right then and there. Winning championships, winning Defensive Player of the Year, was all NBA, was all stars, winning scoring titles, rebound titles, block titles, Defensive Players of the Year. And we got Joker. He came in 2015. Do you remember 2015? That's when the Warriors won the first championship. I'd never heard of Joker before. Never. So Joker wasn't an all-star until 2019. That's when he got on his first All-NBA team. He didn't even make a second team or a third team. First time was 2019. He came in the league in 2015. Let me see. Hell, he was Siberia Player of the Year in 2018. But he came into the NBA in 2015. That's crazy. He was doing things over there 3 years after he came into the league in the NBA, but he wasn't doing nothing over here until 2019. I don't know. Maybe that's over there. The ABA League MVP in 2015. Um, looks like he won the silver medal in the Olympics in 2016, silver medal in the FIBA in 2013. So I'm trying to find out because I don't want to cheat this guy. But no, he don't have nothing. No rebound titles. He don't have a all NBA defensive team. Never. And this guy is supposed to be one of the greatest centers of all time. And won what he won? Was it 3 MVPs or 2? 3. 2001, 2002, and this year in 24. Off of playing no defense? That's crazy. Can't even get you a second defensive team? I don't. I just don't think this guy could play in the 60s. I don't think so as a center, or the 70s, or the 80s, or the 90s. Maybe the 2000s. But like I said, all the great centers that I know, the Wilts, the Russells, the Kareems, the Moses Malones, y'all say Hakeem, David Robinsons, even the Shaqs, even Alonzo Mourning, they were great defensive players. The Ewings, they could give you 20 to 30 points per game, plus make the defensive team, plus give you 10 plus rebounds per game amongst other great big men in the league. That's what they could give you. It wasn't getting rebounds off of nobody being in the lane after the offensive guy shot. It wasn't like that. It wasn't sitting at the top of the key, controlling the ball, trying to get all the assists. Because I tell you what, back in the days, they'd be ripping this guy's pocket up and down the court if he was trying to control the offense. Today, he can do that because there's basically no defense. What center you know, because he don't have like crazy great handles or nothing like that, Joker. So what great center you know is going to be able to sit out there and control the ball and get you 8, 9, 10, 11 assists a game and not get his pocket ripped? It just won't even make no sense to me. They'd be ripping his pocket. But, that's his era. And that's what he uses his energy on, getting these stats. And that's what they do in this era. Not really playing any defense. So you guys tell me what you think, man. Like I said, I think it's incredible that these guys even had the motor to average these kind of stats and had the energy. Whether you want to say, oh man, it was, less skill back then. They were plumbers and this and that. The competition. Hey, their competition was their competition. And they still was able to put up these type of numbers and do the things they did. And these guys are the guys who laid the foundation for the NBA to carry into the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and things of that sort. I mean, are these guys in this era really going to carry on the greatness into the next era in the 2030s? Are they going to be able to do that at a high level to where people even want to watch the game? Right? Because we all heard about the 70s. They were not able to carry on this high level of NBA that they had in the 60s. And I don't think it had nothing to do with dynasties. They just weren't able to carry on this high level. But when we got into the 80s, they were able to carry it back into a high level. And then the 90s and then the 2000s were respectable. The 2010's, it wasn't respectable. That was starting to be the downfall because these guys no longer wanted to compete, and it started with LeBron James. He no longer, he was the one that was supposed to carry the torch from Kobe, and Kobe carried it from Jordan. Jordan carried it from Magic and Bird. And you can say they took it from Kareem and those guys in the 70s, and those guys from the 70s took it from the guys from the 60s. Whether you like the game or not, each era carried on the torch until we got to the 2010's with LeBron, who was supposed to carry on the torch. And he didn't want to do that. He wanted to take shortcuts and have the media tell you what you're seeing on the court. Like today, like I said before, back in the day with pop culture, music, sitcoms, everything, greatness is what we saw with our eyes and our ears. It wasn't what we were told. we actually saw it and heard it. Today, and I think starting in 2012, to me, those same things in pop culture, whether it's movies, sitcoms, music, fashion, everything, we're all told that this is great. Even sports, we're told that this is great, but we don't see it or hear it, right? Because these guys, I think from 2012, didn't carry on the tradition and the greatness of the past. So tell me what you think.